The riverside town of Okuta thrived on two things: the fish that filled its nets each dawn, and the women whose hands could turn thread and hair into art. But no one's hands moved like Tarela's. Her salon sat at the edge of the market, where the sounds of haggling and laughter mixed with the slow roll of the river. Women traveled from 3 towns over just to sit in her chair. Mothers brought their daughters. Brides came the morning of their weddings. Even the women who sold goods in the market would close their stalls early just to secure an appointment. Tarela could finish a full head of braids before the sun moved an inch across the sky. Her fingers never cramped. Never slowed. Every pattern she wove seemed to breathe with life, as if the braids themselves had a pulse. Cornrows that looked like rivers. Box braids that fell like waterfalls. Twists so intricate they seemed impossible. People said she was blessed. That she had a gift from God. That her grandmother must have been a master braider who passed down secrets through blood. But there was a rule. One strange, unshakable rule that everyone had to follow. Before you sat in Tarela's chair, you had to whisper a borrowed name. Any name but your own. Ngozi might call herself Blessing. Amara might become Patience. Chinyu could be Joy. It didn't matter what name you chose, as long as it wasn't yours. At first, new customers would laugh. They'd think it was a joke, some clever marketing gimmick to make the experience memorable. But Tarela's face would remain serious, her eyes pleading. Please, she would say quietly. Just for while you're here. Use any name but your own. Most people complied. The braids were worth it. Her work was so exceptional, so flawless, that women were willing to play along with whatever strange custom she required. Some thought it was a spiritual thing, a practice tied to her religion or her family's traditions. Others whispered that maybe she was a bit eccentric, that artistic people often had their quirks. But a few, the observant ones, noticed things. They noticed how Tarela would flinch whenever someone almost slipped and used their real name. How she would glance at the corners of the room when the sun began to set. How she never, ever introduced herself to new clients. They had to learn her name from others. And they noticed that Tarela's salon, despite being the busiest in town, always felt slightly cold. Even on the hottest days, when the air outside shimmered with heat, there was a chill inside that settled into your bones. Tarela never explained. She would just smile softly, a smile that never quite reached her eyes, and say, "It keeps us safe." Safe from what? No one dared to ask. Because the braids were beautiful. Because Tarela was kind. Because in a world full of questions, sometimes it was easier to just accept the mystery and move on. But mysteries have a way of catching up with you. The truth was buried 6 years deep, in a grief Tarela carried like a stone in her chest. A grief so heavy that some mornings she could barely get out of bed. A grief that made every braid she wove feel like both a blessing and a curse. Her mother had been a trader, once vibrant and sharp-tongued, known throughout Okuta for her wit and her inability to be cheated. She could haggle down any price, spot a counterfeit from across the market, and always knew which merchants were honest and which ones watered down their palm oil. But illness had hollowed her out slowly. It started with a cough that wouldn't leave. Then came the fevers that made her skin burn to the touch. Then the weight loss, the weakness, the way her bones began to show through her skin like landmarks on a map of suffering. The doctors couldn't name it. Or maybe they could, but the medicine was too expensive. Hospital bills consumed everything. Every bit of savings. Every piece of jewelry. Every favor the family could call in. Tarela was barely 16 then, caught between childhood and adulthood, watching her mother fade like ink in water. She had been learning to braid since she was 8, sitting between her mother's knees, her small fingers mimicking the movements she saw. By 16, she had skill. Her braids were neat, her patterns clean. But she had no speed. No reputation. No way to earn enough money to make a difference. A single head of braids took her 4 hours. Sometimes 5. In a day, she might finish 2 customers if she was lucky. The money she made was enough for food, but not for medicine. Not for the hospital. Not for hope. She watched her mother shrink. Watched the light leave her eyes bit by bit. Watched her become a ghost long before her body stopped breathing. And her mother watched her daughter watching. Watched Tarela's hands move slowly, carefully, too slowly. Watched her count the money each night with tears in her eyes. Watched her beautiful, talented daughter realize she wasn't enough. In her final days, Tarela's mother made a decision. She waited until the household was asleep. Until her husband's snores filled the bedroom and Tarela's breathing had steadied in the next room. Then she rose from her sickbed, weak and trembling, and wrapped a cloth around her shoulders. She walked to the river. It took her an hour to cover the distance that normally took 10 minutes. Every step was agony. Her legs shook. Her vision blurred. But she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, driven by a mother's desperate love. The river at midnight was a different creature than the river at noon. During the day, it was a place of life. Women washed clothes on its banks. Children splashed in the shallows. Fishermen cast their nets and sang songs to pass the time. But at night, the river belonged to older things. Spirits that remembered when the town was just 3 huts and a prayer. Entities that lived in the space between water and land, between living and dying. Tarela's mother knelt in the mud at the river's edge. The water was cold, colder than it should have been, and it moved in ways that didn't match the current. "I know you're here," she whispered to the darkness. "I know you listen." For a long moment, there was nothing. Just the sound of water and the distant cry of a night bird. Then something answered. It had no face. No body. Just a voice that came from everywhere and nowhere, like wind through reeds, like stones grinding together, like the river itself learning to speak. "What do you want, dying woman?" Tarela's mother didn't hesitate. She had thought about this for weeks. Rehearsed it. Made peace with it. "My daughter. She has a gift with her hands. She can braid hair like art. But she's too slow. Too young. Too unknown. I'm dying, and when I'm gone, she'll have nothing. No protection. No way to survive." Her voice cracked. "I'm begging you. Give her speed. Give her skill that no one can match. Let her hands never tire. Let her work be so flawless that people come from everywhere just to sit in her chair. Let her be able to take care of herself when I'm gone." The spirit was quiet. Then it laughed. The sound made the water ripple in wrong directions. "A gift like that requires payment." "I know." Tarela's mother bowed her head. "Take my remaining days. I have so few left anyway. What's a week or 2? Just give my daughter a chance. Your days are worthless to me. You're already dead, woman. You just haven't stopped moving yet." The words should have hurt, but they didn't. Because they were true. "Then what do you want?" The spirit moved closer. Tarela's mother felt it, a presence in the water, something vast and ancient and hungry. "I am a hunter of names," it whispered. "I feed on identity. On the truth of who people are. On the moment when someone speaks their name with pride and certainty. That is what sustains me." Tarela's mother's blood went cold. "I don't understand." "I will give your daughter the gift you ask for. Her hands will move like lightning. She will never tire. Her work will be legend. But I will bind myself to her voice, to her presence. And I will feed. Feed on what? On truth. On names. If any person speaks their true name in her presence, I will wake. I will claim them. First their health. Then their luck. Then their mind. Piece by piece, I will consume them until there is nothing left but a shell." Tarela's mother's hands shook. "No. I can't do that to her. I can't curse her. Then your daughter will struggle. She will be poor. She will be forgotten. She will waste her talent because she lacks speed and reputation. Is that a better fate? There must be another way." "There is." The spirit's voice turned almost gentle. "She can protect them. If no one speaks their true name near her, I cannot feed. If she makes a rule, if she enforces it, if everyone uses false names in her presence, then I will sleep. The gift will remain, but I will not wake. She will have everything you want for her, and no one will be harmed." It was a trap. Tarela's mother knew it was a trap. But she was dying, and she was desperate, and she wanted so badly to believe that there was a way to save her daughter without destroying her. How long, she whispered. How long would she have to keep this rule? Until she breaks it herself. Until she claims her own name in her own space. Until she chooses to be free. And if she does, then the binding breaks. The gift fades. And I return to the river. Tarela's mother closed her eyes. She thought of her daughter's hands, so skilled but so slow. She thought of the poverty that waited for her. The struggle. The way the world chewed up girls like Tarela and spit them out. She thought about how desperately she wanted her daughter to survive. Promise me, she said. Promise me that as long as she keeps the rule, no one will be hurt. I promise. As long as no true name is spoken near her, I will sleep. The gift is hers. The danger is dormant. It wasn't a good bargain. It wasn't even a fair one. But it was the only one being offered. I accept, Tarela's mother whispered. The spirit moved through her like cold water. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Her heart stuttered in her chest. And then it was done. 3 days, the spirit whispered. You have 3 days left. Teach her the rule. Make her understand. Or the first person to speak their name near her will pay the price of your bargain. Tarela's mother dragged herself back home. She didn't remember the walk. When she woke, she was in her bed, and her daughter was crying beside her. She had 2 days left. She spent them trying to explain, but the words wouldn't come. How do you tell your child that you've bound them to a spirit? That you've cursed them while trying to save them? Every time she tried to speak, her throat would close up, her vision would blur. The spirit had made sure she couldn't warn anyone. On the 3rd day, Tarela's mother died. She went quietly, in the early morning, with her daughter holding her hand. Her last words were barely a whisper. Never say your name. Never let them say theirs. Promise me. Tarela, crying, confused, promised without understanding. And that morning, when Tarela woke, her hands were different. She noticed it while washing her face. Her fingers moved faster. More precisely. When she picked up a comb, it felt like an extension of her own body. She sat down to practice a simple braid and finished it in minutes. Then she tried a more complex pattern. Then another. By noon, she had braided her younger sister's entire head in 45 minutes. Work that should have taken 3 hours. Her sister stared at her in the mirror. How did you do that? Tarela looked at her hands, trembling with a mix of wonder and fear. I don't know. But she did know. Deep down, she knew. Her mother's last words. The strange desperation in her eyes. The way she'd made Tarela promise something she didn't understand. Something had changed. Something had been given. At first, Tarela thought it was a blessing. Customers who had been lukewarm about her work suddenly came back amazed. Word spread fast. Within a week, she had a waiting list. Within a month, she was booked solid. Women came from other towns just to experience what everyone was talking about. Tarela's hands never tired. She could work from sunrise to sunset without a single cramp. Her patterns were perfect. Her speed was legendary. She was 16 years old and suddenly her family wasn't starving anymore. But then came the incident with little Adiz. Adiz was 7 years old, gap-toothed and giggly, and she had just had her naming ceremony renewed. In their tradition, when a child turned 7, they were given the right to introduce themselves by their full name, to claim their identity in public. Adiz was so proud. She came into Tarela's salon holding her mother's hand, practically bouncing with excitement. Tarela, who was 17 by then, smiled at her and gestured to the chair. Come, little one. Let me make you beautiful. Adiz climbed into the chair, her feet dangling above the ground. And then, with all the pride of a child claiming her place in the world, she announced. My name is Adiz Neka Oluchi, daughter of Ngozi, granddaughter of Mama Ikin, and today is my name day. The lights flickered. Tarela's hands froze mid-braid. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that Adiz's mother pulled her shawl tighter. And in the corner, where the shadows were deepest, something moved. Tarela saw it. Just for a second. A shape that wasn't quite there, unfolding from the darkness like oil spreading across water. It had too many angles. Too many fingers. And it was looking at Adiz. "We need to leave," Tarela said suddenly, her voice tight with panic. Adiz's mother frowned. "But you just started. We've been waiting for weeks for this appointment. Now. Please. Take her and go. Now." The urgency in Tarela's voice was so raw, so terrified, that Adiz's mother didn't argue. She grabbed her daughter's hand and left, confused and a little offended. That night, Adiz developed a fever. By morning, she was delirious. By the third day, she couldn't recognize her own mother. The doctors couldn't explain it. There was no infection, no virus, nothing physical they could point to. It was as if something had reached into Adiz's mind and started erasing her from the inside out. Tarela heard about it from the market gossip. She felt sick. She felt responsible. But she didn't know why. Didn't understand what had happened. Until the next time. An older woman came in, a grandmother with gray in her hair and wisdom in her eyes. She sat in the chair and, making conversation, said, "You know, my full name is Obioma. It means good heart. My mother chose it because I was born smiling." The lights flickered again. This time, Tarela understood. The rule her mother had made her promise. Never say your name. Never let them say theirs. Names. It was about names. The shadow was there again, in the corner, and it was hungry. Tarela acted on instinct. She stood up, put herself between the woman and the shadow, and said loudly, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake with your appointment. I can't do your hair today." The woman was offended, but Tarela didn't care. She practically pushed her out of the salon, locked the door, and sank to the floor. That night, the woman's garden died. Every plant withered overnight. Her chickens stopped laying eggs. Her hip, which had been fine for years, suddenly ached so badly she couldn't walk. Small miseries. Pieces of her life being chipped away. Tarela understood then. The curse. The bargain. Whatever her mother had done to give her this gift, it came with a price. A spirit that fed on truth, on identity, on the sound of real names spoken aloud. And it was bound to Tarela. She spent a week in terror, not opening the salon, trying to figure out what to do. And then, slowly, she came to a conclusion. If the spirit fed on true names, she would make a rule. No one would speak their true name in her presence. Everyone would use borrowed names. False identities. It was the only way to keep people safe. It was the only way to keep the gift without causing harm. So she made the rule. She enforced it gently but firmly. At first, people thought she was strange. But her work was so exceptional that they complied. Over time, it became part of the experience. Part of the mystique of Tarela's salon. For 6 years, it worked. Adiz recovered eventually, though she was never quite the same. The grandmother's misfortunes passed after a few weeks, and Tarela quietly left money at her doorstep to help replace what was lost. No one else got hurt. The spirit slept. And Tarela braided hair with hands that moved like magic, all while carrying a secret that was slowly crushing her. She never spoke her own name. Not in the salon. Not to new customers. Not even to herself in the mirror. She was 23 years old and had forgotten what it felt like to hear her own name said aloud. She had everything she'd ever wanted: success, reputation, financial security. And she had never been more trapped in her life. Then Ifueko arrived. It was a Tuesday morning, and the market was busy. Tarela was between appointments, sitting outside her salon, watching the river flow past. She liked this time of day. The moment between customers when she could pretend, just for a few minutes, that she was normal. A woman approached, tall and striking, with fabric samples draped over one arm and the confident stride of someone who knew their worth. Her wrapper was expensive, her jewelry understated but real. She carried herself like someone who had fought for every inch of respect they had. "Are you Tarela?" the woman asked. Tarela stood, wiping her hands on her apron. "I am. Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I'm hoping you can fit me in. I'm in town for 3 days to meet with merchants, and everyone says you're the best." She smiled. "I'm Ifueko." She said it so naturally. So proudly. Like her name was a gift she was offering. Tarela's stomach clenched. Welcome. I can fit you in, but first, there's something you need to know. Ifueko raised an eyebrow. The name rule. Yes, I heard about it. Then you know that while you're here, you'll need to use a different name. Any name you'd like, just not your own. Ifueko's smile faded. She studied Tarela for a long moment, and something in her expression hardened. With respect, sister, I won't be doing that. Tarela's hands went cold. Please. It's important. I'm sure it is. But so is my name. Ifueko's voice was calm but immovable. 3 years ago, a rival merchant stole my designs. She sold them in markets up and down the river, claiming they were hers. She used a false name, changed her appearance, made it impossible to track her down. By the time I found out, my reputation was in ruins. Customers thought I was the one copying her. She paused, and Tarela could see old pain in her eyes. I spent 2 years rebuilding. Fighting for every customer. Proving that my work was mine. That my name meant something. I lost everything because someone hid behind a false identity, and I rebuilt everything by standing behind my real one. She looked at Tarela directly. So no. I won't use a borrowed name. Not even for an hour. Not even for the best braids in Okuta. My name is Ifueko, daughter of Ejiro, granddaughter of Ao. And I'm proud to say it. Tarela's heart was pounding. She could feel the cold beginning already, that drop in temperature that meant the spirit was stirring. Please, she whispered. You don't understand. It's not about respect or tradition. It's about safety. Whose safety? Everyone's. Yours. Mine. Please, I'm begging you. Just this once. Just while you're in my chair. Use any other name. Ifueko studied her face. She saw the fear there, the genuine terror, and it gave her pause. But she'd made a promise to herself 3 years ago. Never hide. Never again. I'm sorry, she said gently. But I can't. She walked toward the salon door. Tarela rushed after her, grabbing her arm. Then you can't come in. I'm sorry. I'll recommend other braiders. Excellent ones. But you can't come into my salon. Ifueko looked at Tarela's hand on her arm, then at her face. You're really that serious? Yes. This isn't about branding or mystique. No. Ifueko pulled her arm free, but she didn't leave. Instead, she crossed her arms and studied Tarela with the calculating gaze of someone who'd negotiated her way through life. What happens if someone speaks their real name? Tell me the truth. Tarela opened her mouth. Closed it. She'd never told anyone. Never explained. The words felt like stones in her throat. But maybe, just maybe, if she explained, Ifueko would understand. Something wakes up, Tarela said quietly. Something that was bound to me when I was 16. Something that feeds on truth, on identity, on the sound of real names. If you speak your name in my presence, it will come for you. It will take pieces of you. Your health. Your luck. Your mind. It won't kill you quickly. It will just hollow you out until there's nothing left. The market noise seemed very far away. Ifueko stared at her. You're serious? Yes. That's why the rule. You're protecting people. I'm trying to. Ifueko was quiet for a long time. Then she said, how long have you been carrying this? 6 years. And in 6 years, you've never spoken your own name. Tarela shook her head. Ifueko's expression softened. She understood sacrifice. She understood the weight of carrying something alone. I'm sorry, she said. That's a heavy burden. It is. But I still won't use a false name. Before Tarela could protest, Ifueko held up a hand. Not because I don't believe you. But because I don't think the answer is silence. If there's something bound to you, something that feeds on truth, then hiding from it isn't the solution. It's just a cage you've built for yourself. It keeps people safe. Does it? Or does it just delay the inevitable? Ifueko's voice was gentle but firm. How long can you keep this up? Another 6 years? Another 60? What kind of life is that, Tarela? Never hearing your own name. Never allowing truth in your own space. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. It might not be a good choice. It might not be easy. But it's still there. Tarela felt tears burning in her eyes. If you speak your name, it will come for you. I don't want that on my conscience. Ifueko smiled, sad and understanding. Then I won't enter your salon. I respect your space and your rules. But I want you to know something. She reached out and took Tarela's hand. My name is Ifueko. I'm saying it here, in the open air, where your curse can't touch me. I'm saying it so you remember that names have power. That truth has value. That whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it forever. She squeezed Tarela's hand and let go. Think about it. And if you ever want help breaking free, come find me. I'm staying at the Merchant Lodge by the North Well. She walked away, leaving Tarela standing outside her salon, trembling. That night, Tarela couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Ifueko had said. A cage you've built for yourself. Was that what this was? She thought she was protecting people. Keeping them safe. But maybe she was also hiding. Using the curse as an excuse to never claim her own space, her own identity. She thought about her mother, dying in desperation, making a bargain she didn't understand. She thought about the spirit, sleeping beneath her salon, waiting. She thought about all the women who whispered false names before sitting in her chair, and how she'd convinced herself it was normal. It wasn't normal. It was a prison. But what choice did she have? She must have finally fallen asleep, because she woke to pounding on her door. It was Ifueko's voice. Tarela. I need help. Tarela threw on clothes and opened the door. Ifueko was there, looking shaken, with a young woman beside her. The woman was pale, trembling, her eyes unfocused. What happened? This is Amara. She's a merchant's daughter, came to deliver a message to me at the lodge. We were talking, and I introduced myself. I said my full name. And then she... Ifueko's voice cracked. She started saying her name too. Like it was a compulsion. Like she couldn't stop. Over and over. And then this happened. Amara's lips were moving, but no sound came out. Her eyes were glazed. We need to get her inside, Tarela said. Your salon. But the rule. It's too late for that. They carried Amara into the salon. The moment they crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped. The lamps flickered. And Tarela felt it. The spirit was awake. It had been fed. Ifueko had spoken her name outside the salon, in the open air where it shouldn't have mattered. But the spirit was stronger than Tarela had realized. It had been sleeping for 6 years, storing up power. And Ifueko's name, spoken with such pride and certainty, had been like ringing a bell. Now it was hunting. And it had found Amara, who'd been close enough to hear. Who'd been caught in the echo. What do we do? Ifueko demanded. Tarela looked around her salon, at the space she'd kept so carefully controlled for so long. At the chair where 1,000 women had sat and lied about who they were. At the corners where shadows gathered. We run, she said. They grabbed Amara and fled into the night. The market was empty at this hour, the stalls closed, the paths dark. They ran toward the old quarter, toward the part of town where the buildings were older and the rules were different. Behind them, something followed. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Just a sense of pursuit, of hunger closing in. Where are we going? Ifueko gasped. Elder Amina. If anyone can help us, it's him. Who? The keeper of the old ways. The one who remembers. They found his hut beside the ancient wells, where the town's first people had drawn water centuries ago. The wells were dry now, just stone circles in the ground, but they still felt sacred somehow. Protected. Elder Amina was sitting outside, waiting. He was ancient, his face a map of wrinkles, his eyes milky with blindness. But when they approached, he turned his head as if he could see them perfectly. "You brought it with you," he said calmly. Tarela looked behind them. In the darkness, a shadow was forming. Darker than the night around it. Growing. "Elder, please. Can you help us? Put the girl down. Let me see her." They laid Amara on the ground. Amina knelt beside her, his hands moving over her face without touching, reading something in the air around her. "She's being eaten," he said simply. "The spirit is consuming her identity. Soon she won't remember her own name. Then she won't remember herself at all. She'll be a shell. Can you stop it?" Ifueko asked. "No." Amina's voice was matter of fact. "But you can." He turned his face toward Tarela. "This is your burden. Your curse. You're the only one who can break it." "How?" "The spirit is bound to your voice, to your fear of being named. It feeds on the silence you've created, on the lie you've been living. To break it, you must do 3 things." He held up one finger. "First, you must braid your own hair for the first time. Your mother bought you the gift, but you've never truly claimed it. You must make it yours." A second finger. "Second, you must speak the names of your ancestors as you braid. Call on their strength. Let their voices drown out the spirit's claim on you." A third finger. "Third, when the spirit comes for you, and it will come, you must speak your own name aloud. Not in fear. Not in hiding. But with certainty. With pride. You must claim yourself fully, or the binding will never break." Tarela's hands were shaking. "I've never braided my own hair. I don't know if I can." "Then you will learn. Or you will die. And this girl will die. And your friend will die. And the spirit will move on to the next person, and the next, until it has fed enough to walk freely in this world." The shadow was closer now. Tarela could see it taking shape. Angular shoulders. Too many fingers. Eyes that were holes in reality. "If I break the binding," Tarela said, her voice barely a whisper, "what happens to my gift?" Amina was quiet for a moment. "The gift your mother bought will fade. Not all at once. But slowly. Your hands will still be skilled, but they will be mortal again. You will tire. You will ache. You will be ordinary." The word hit like a physical blow. Ordinary. Everything she'd built. Her reputation. Her business. Her identity. All of it rested on the speed of her hands, on the supernatural gift that set her apart. "If I don't break it," she asked, though she already knew the answer, "the spirit will take all 3 of you. It's been starving for 6 years. It will feed until there's nothing left." Tarela looked at Amara, lying unconscious on the ground. At Ifueko, standing ready to fight something she couldn't see. At the shadow creeping closer. She thought about her mother, desperate and dying, making a choice she thought would save her daughter. She thought about the 6 years she'd spent hiding, asking others to hide, building a life on silence and fear. She thought about the little girl, Adiz, who'd been so proud of her name day. Who'd paid the price for Tarela's ignorance. She thought about what Ifueko had said. "A cage you've built for yourself." "I'll do it," Tarela said. Amina nodded. He rose slowly, retrieving a drum from inside his hut. It was old, the wood carved with symbols Tarela didn't recognize, the skin stretched tight over its frame. He sat back down and began to beat a slow rhythm. The sound was deep, primal, like a heartbeat pulled from the earth itself. "Begin," he said. Tarela sat on the ground, her legs crossed, her hands reaching back to touch her own hair. It felt strange. Wrong. She'd braided 1,000 heads but never her own. Her fingers fumbled. She couldn't find the right sections. Couldn't feel the pattern. The shadow moved closer. It was fully formed now, a thing of angles and hunger, crouching at the edge of the firelight. "Ayanyam," Tarela whispered. Her grandmother's name. The woman who had raised her mother, who had died when Tarela was 10. She forced her hands to move, starting the first braid. The shadow hissed. It didn't like the name. Timey. Her great-grandmother. A woman she'd never met but heard stories about. the woman who had buried 3 children in 1 year and still found the strength to laugh. The second braid joined the first, clumsy and uneven. The shadow surged forward. The temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the ground, crackling as it formed. Ifueko stepped between Tarela and the spirit, her arms spread wide. She was terrified. Tarela could see it in the trembling of her shoulders. But she didn't move. "You want a name?" Ifueko's voice shook but held firm. "Here's mine. Ifueko, daughter of Ejiro, granddaughter of Ao, great-granddaughter of Omason. Come and take it if you can." The shadow lunged at her. Ominous drum beat faster, louder, the rhythm becoming a barrier. The shadow recoiled, shrieking. The sound was like metal tearing, like glass shattering. "Keep going," Ifueko shouted. Boma. Ivy. Omanigo. Each name was a thread binding Tarela to something older than the curse. Each braid was an anchor. Her hands began to remember. Muscle memory deeper than fear. Her fingers moved faster, more certain. About how gifts given out of fear or desperation always came with strings. "Yes," Tarela said. "But I'll teach you the real way. The slow way. The human way. No shortcuts. No bargains. Just skill and practice and time." Amara grinned. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." So Tarela became a teacher. She took on apprentices. Taught them not just technique, but patience. Not just patterns, but the stories behind them. Not just speed, but meaning. Her business changed shape. She made less money, but she slept better. She had fewer customers, but deeper relationships. She was slower, but she was free. 1 year after the curse broke, on the anniversary of that night, Ifueko brought palm wine to the salon after closing. They sat outside, watching the river, passing the bottle back and forth. "Do you regret it?" Ifueko asked. The same question she'd asked a year ago. Giving up the gift. Tarela thought about it. Really thought about it. She thought about the customers she'd lost. The reputation that had faded. The supernatural speed that had made her legend. Then she thought about the morning 2 weeks ago when a woman named Patience had sat in her chair and said, "My real name is Neka. I've been calling myself Patience for so long I almost forgot." And the way she'd cried when Tarela braided her hair and called her Neka the entire time. She thought about her apprentices, learning slowly, making mistakes, getting better day by day through practice instead of magic. She thought about the way she could now say her own name whenever she wanted. How she could introduce herself to strangers. How she could exist in her own space without fear. "No," Tarela said. "I don't regret it." "Good." Ifueko took a sip of palm wine. "Because I have a proposition for you." "Oh. My business is growing. I need a partner. Someone who understands customer service, who has a reputation for quality work, who knows how to build something from nothing." She looked at Tarela. Interested. Tarela raised an eyebrow. "What would I do?" "I don't know anything about fabric." "You know about women. About listening to what they need. About creating beauty." Ifueko smiled. "Besides, I need someone who isn't afraid to tell the truth. Someone who knows what happens when you hide who you are for too long." Tarela laughed. It felt good. Easy. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed without that weight of fear underneath it. "Let me think about it," she said. But she already knew her answer. 3 months later, they merged their businesses. Tarela's salon in the front, Ifueko's fabrics in the back, a seamstress station in between. Women could get their hair braided, buy fabric, have a dress made, all in one place. They called it True Name Enterprises. On the sign, underneath the name, they added a motto, "Come as you are. Leave as yourself." It took time to build. There were setbacks. Slow months. Moments of doubt. But they built it together, on truth instead of lies, on friendship instead of fear, on human effort instead of supernatural shortcuts. 5 years after the curse broke, Tarela married a man named Ejiro who worked on the fishing boats. He'd been trying to ask her out for 2 years, but she'd been too busy, too focused on surviving, too afraid of letting anyone close. Now she had time. Space. Freedom. Their wedding was small, held by the river at sunset. Ifueko stood beside her as her witness. Amara, now a skilled braider in her own right, did Tarela's hair. During the ceremony, when it came time for vows, Tarela spoke her name clearly. Proudly. I, Tarela, daughter of Braider, take you as my husband. The words felt like magic. Not the kind that came from spirits and bargains. The kind that came from truth. From choice. From claiming yourself fully and building a life on that foundation. Elder Amina attended the wedding. He was even older now, moving slowly, but his mind was sharp. He gave them a blessing, his hands on their heads, his voice carrying the weight of ancient prayers. Afterward, he pulled Tarela aside. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. You chose the harder path. The human path. That takes more courage than most people have. I had help, Tarela said, glancing at Ifueko. We all need help. That's part of being human too. He smiled. Your mother would be proud. She made a mistake, yes. But she did it for love. And you turned that mistake into wisdom. That's all any of us can hope for. Tarela's eyes burned with tears. I wish she could see this. She can, Amina said with certainty. The ancestors are always watching. Always proud. Always with us. 10 years after the curse broke, Tarela and Ifueko's business had expanded to 3 locations. They employed 15 people. They'd trained dozens of apprentices, many of whom had gone on to open their own shops. Tarela was slower than she'd been at 23. Her hands ached on cold mornings. She needed reading glasses now. Her hair was starting to gray at the temples. She was ordinary. And she had never been happier. One afternoon, a young woman came into the shop. She was maybe 17, thin and nervous, with skill in her hands but no confidence in her eyes. I heard you teach people, the girl said. I heard you take apprentices. We do, Tarela said. What's your name? The girl hesitated. Then, as if it took all her courage, she said, Elahor. It's nice to meet you, Elahor. Tarela smiled. Come. Sit. Let's talk. As they talked, Tarela learned that Elahor was an orphan. That she'd been braiding hair to survive. That she was fast, very fast, but people said she was too young, too inexperienced, too unknown. Tarela heard her own story in the girl's words. The desperation. The fear. The desire to be seen as worthy. I'll teach you, Tarela said. But not how to be fast. I'll teach you how to be good. How to build something that lasts. How to create beauty that's yours, not borrowed from anywhere or anyone. Elahor's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. No bargains, Tarela said firmly. No shortcuts. Just work and time and patience. And you get to use your real name. Always. I understand. As the girl left, promising to return the next morning to begin her apprenticeship, Ifueko came to stand beside Tarela. You're going to change that girl's life, she said. Tarela shook her head. I'm going to teach her. She'll change her own life. They stood together, watching the market bustle with activity, the river flowing past, the sun moving across the sky in its ancient pattern. Do you ever think about it? Ifueko asked. The spirit? The curse? That night. Sometimes, Tarela admitted. But less and less. It's like a story that happened to someone else now. A story that taught me something important. What did it teach you? Tarela thought about it. About her mother's desperate bargain. About 6 years of hiding. About the night everything changed. About the slow, difficult work of building a real life afterward. That the gifts we're given are never as important as the choices we make, she said. That truth is more valuable than magic. That being ordinary, being human, being free to speak your own name, that's the real gift. Everything else is just decoration. Ifueko smiled. I couldn't have said it better myself. In the years that followed, the story of Tarela spread throughout the region. Not the way her reputation as the fastest braider had spread. Slower. deeper. A story told by mothers to daughters, by teachers to students, by women who understood the weight of silence. It became a folktale, a parable, a reminder. They said that in Okuta, there was once a woman whose hands moved like magic, who could braid faster than humanly possible, who built an empire on supernatural speed. And they said she gave it all up to be able to say her own name. Some versions of the story made her a martyr. Others made her a fool. But the women who told it to each other, the ones who really understood, they knew the truth. She wasn't a martyr or a fool. She was just human, making the choice that so many of them wish they had the courage to make. The choice to be seen, to be known, to take off the masks and borrowed names and false identities and stand in their own truth, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The story always ended the same way, with the same lesson, spoken like a prayer. Your name is yours. Your power is yours. And no gift, no matter how beautiful, is worth the price of silence. In Okuta, by the river where spirits once listened to desperate bargains, that lesson lived on. Not in curses or magic or supernatural speed, but in the ordinary courage of women who chose to speak their names, who chose to claim themselves, who chose freedom over safety, truth over comfort, and the slow, difficult work of being human over the easy lie of being superhuman. And in a small salon by the market, where a sign read, "Come as you are. Leave as yourself," that lesson was taught every day, until the choosing itself became the magic. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the power in claiming your own name and your own truth, then subscribe to this channel. We bring you stories like this every week. Tales that dig deep into the human experience, that explore the cost of our choices, and that remind us what it means to be free. Hit that like button if Tarela's journey resonated with you. Drop a comment and tell us, what would you sacrifice for success? And would you have the courage to give it back? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been hiding. Someone who's forgotten the sound of their own name. Someone who needs to be reminded that being ordinary, being human, being true, that's the real magic. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Because the best tales are the ones that change how we see ourselves. And remember, your name is yours. Your power is yours. And no bargain is worth the price of silence. Until the next story, keep claiming your truth. Keep speaking your name. Keep choosing freedom. See you in the next one.